Hi, I'm Jim McGrath. I'm the Director of HUD Programs at the Missoula Housing Authority. The Missoula Housing Authority is the largest provider of affordable housing and housing resources in Missoula. Housing is a basic need that everybody has. The Valor House houses veterans who are homeless, and then we give them their own home.
My name is Robert Taggart. I'm a Vietnam-era peacetime veteran at the Valor House here in Missoula, Montana. So when I came back to Missoula, I went through a program at the Poverello. They gave me the key to my apartment. So when I looked into my apartment, I said, "This is mine?" And they go, "Yeah." Well, they were always telling me that I deserved it. I always asked, "Why did I deserve it?" "Well, you deserve it."
Welcome to The Trail Less Traveled, an adventure radio series and podcast dedicated to collecting stories and sounds from around the world in order to take you back to mankind's earliest form of entertainment, storytelling. This episode was recorded on location in collaboration with Explorer Maps. Missoula, Montana is a mecca for outdoor enthusiasts, and each week we will bring you tales of adventure from both near and far, as well as information and inspiration and a few tunes to set the mood. You can subscribe to the podcast and learn about our international outreach projects at traillesstraveled.net. And now, here's your host, international expedition guide, conservationist, and yogi, Mandela.
We're sitting at the Valor House here in Missoula, Montana, and I'm with Jim McGrath. He is the Director of HUD Programs at Missoula Housing Authority and has been with Missoula Housing Authority since 2005. Well, first and foremost, Jim McGrath, thank you for your work, and thank you for making time to sit with me today at the Valor House.
Well, it's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Before we talk about Missoula Housing Authority, I'd like to know a little bit about your story and what led you to being so incredibly generous with your time when it comes to helping those in need.
I've been involved in housing issues here in Missoula for a long time. Housing is a basic need that everybody has. So I've been attracted to things like housing and food security issues and stuff my entire adult life. But I've been sort of drifted into affordable housing quite a while ago. So I started the Missoula Housing Authority in 2005, and Valor House opened in 2005. So it kind of feels like we grew up together in the affordable housing scene.
And for someone listening who doesn't know what the Valor House or where it's located, can you tell us a little bit about this place that we're sitting today?
Sure. Well, the Valor House is a 17-unit building. It houses veterans who are homeless, and then we give them their own home. Like I said, it's been operating for almost 20 years now. It's a really great facility. We also have a neighboring facility, the Cornerstone, another apartment complex that has veterans in it as well. The address is on Great Northern Loop, but the way I usually identify it to people, it's Bone and Joint. So if you're going to Bone and Joint and you turn left instead of right, that's where we're at. We're kind of down in a cul-de-sac. It's kind of really peaceful and quiet, and that, I think, is part of one of the things that Valor House gives to the veterans that come here, is that peace and quiet setting.
Mm-hmm. Let's dive into Missoula Housing Authority and all of the ways in which you help not only veterans, but others who need somewhere to live and be safe.
Sure. I mean, that is our core mission. The Missoula Housing Authority is the housing agency of the city of Missoula. We're not part of the city of Missoula. We're a public nonprofit, but we are created by city ordinance, and so we're here to serve you. We focus on helping those who need housing the most, obviously. We look at folks who are homeless, but also working families, disabled, elderly. You mentioned foster youth, any of a number of folks who have a small home ownership component. We just reach all across the spectrum to help. My role is we do rental assistance, which is helping people pay rent when the rent's too expensive, but we also own and manage 1,150 affordable housing units in town. We are the largest provider of affordable housing in Missoula.
So recently you did a collaborative project with Explorer Maps.
Yeah, that's fun.
Tell us about that.
Explorer Maps, I mean, they just now opened a shop on 3rd Street, and so we did a thing there, and it was kind of fun to go in there. Now I know where I'm going to go for all my Christmas shopping, because they have everything to do with maps, and maps are cool. I mean, but what they wanted to do was on Memorial Day, people would buy one of their maps that's a blanket that's a map, whichever way you want to think about it, and then for each one that was bought, they donated one to somebody who's in one of our veterans programs. So that's really cool. And, you know, In Montana, you can't have too many blankets. It's wonderful, but also it's really nice to have those community connections. Valor House has always been supported by generous people in the community, whether it's things like blankets and this connection, or food, or there's sets of folks that like to donate socks, things like that. All kinds of cool stuff.
Let's talk a little bit more about the ways in which someone listening can help support your work.
It's always good to remember that this work is largely supported by public funds, particularly federal funds, so be sure and get that message out to your elected officials that these are important. At the Housing Authority, we provide homes for folks, and we can partner with other agencies. In the case of Valor House, we've partnered with the Veterans Administration, and VA provides various services, medical and mental health services, and so on. But that's not everything that everybody needs. So we have partnerships with maybe the food bank or with the Poverello Center or with others. So folks have things that also help people meet their basic needs, whether it's blankets, or somebody came out a few years ago and helped set up a garden for the tenants here to work on and help them do it. So anything like that you think would be something that would help somebody in their day-to-day life, but also maybe enrich their lives, please just go ahead and contact us at our website, MissoulaHousing.org. Figure out a place to plug you in.
Are there any volunteer opportunities?
There are. Again, I would have you contact us because they need to be specifically set up. But yeah, we have right now the Boy Scouts are helping with some gardening stuff. A couple of the local motels, every few years motels just change all their furniture out because they're tired of it. But it's perfectly good furniture, and so they have been donating it to Missoula Housing, affordable housing providers. And when we have a program like Valor House where we're taking someone who's homeless and giving them a home, they don't necessarily have a whole bunch of stuff to bring with them. Mm-hmm. And so we furnish the apartments. So those are cool donations as well. So there's different ways. I would just have you contact us and we can make it a little bit more intentional as to how those happen.
I think this is a really important topic. It's something that comes up probably on a weekly basis in conversations I've had around Missoula, is just how much more expensive things have gotten. And I have had many friends who have actually moved away and they love this place, but they just couldn't live here anymore.
Yeah. I mean, there's no doubt that housing costs continue to go up. Housing availability is tight. We're losing the ability of the people who live and work here, your neighbors, your children, your parents, your school teachers, your policemen are not going to be able to live in the town in which they serve and maybe grew up in or wanted to stay in. And we have to take action to make sure that we mitigate that as much as possible. The Housing Authority, we work really hard. A big part of what we do is develop new housing, but it also takes more than that, and it takes more and more now. I mentioned elected officials. Again, the city of Missoula and the county of Missoula are very strong partners. They need to continue to hear, as I'm sure they do, as you say, every day probably, from their constituents, how important housing is and how big a need it is to keep it so that Missoula resembles a place that you want to be in.
Well, I think it's important that people listening help your neighbor step up and see what you can do. Jim, thank you so much for your time and energy and everything that you've done for our community here in Missoula.
Well, thank you.
What are 3 bits of life advice that you would share with whoever's listening out there?
I think it's just great that you're taking the time to listen to us, and I think Explorer Maps and folks like that want to pitch in and partner are really great. I think that's part of what makes Missoula a really great community, and I think everybody needs to continue to do that.
Today, The Trail Less Traveled is being recorded at the Valor House here in Missoula, Montana, and I'm sitting down with Greg Norgard. He is a lifelong Montanan and the housing specialist for Veterans Incorporated, a private nonprofit organization which provides a wide array of programs and supportive services to veterans service members and their families. First and foremost, Greg, thank you so much for setting aside the time to sit down with me and share a little bit about your work.
Thanks for having me. We offer the SSVF grant in Montana. That's supportive services for veteran families. It's basically housing assistance for homeless veterans and veterans at imminent risk of homelessness.
Tell me a little bit about your path to this job. Do you have any family members who are veterans, or did you have any experiences that led you to doing what you do today?
Many veteran family members. I recently started working SSVF for Veterans Incorporated.
Could you kind of tell us about this work? Because you've been doing it since 1990, correct?
Veterans Incorporated has, right, yeah. I was in kindergarten in 1990.
Yeah.
We've assisted about 100,000 veterans since 1990, or about 6,000 per year. We have an 800 number, 800-482-2565, if folks want to volunteer or see what they can do to help out. We're always looking to meet with new landlords and property managers in there. We've got somewhat of a housing shortage here in Missoula and around Montana. People might not necessarily consider themselves homeless or even at risk of homeless. They might not necessarily find themselves in a critical moment. So if they want to reach out to us, just because a person doesn't think they qualify or are in need of services doesn't necessarily mean that they don't. So reach out to us. veteransinc.org.
I'm also curious about a personal experience that you have had during your time doing this work.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's a really rewarding work. I'm grateful to be able to do it and work with community partners like Explore Maps. Pleasure to meet new people, meet veterans, pay back our veterans who've served their country. It's a good way to reciprocate. Probably around 400 veterans, probably hundreds of thousands of dollars that we've utilized to get veterans into housing or prevent veterans from losing their housing.
And we are sitting here today in the Valor House, so someone listening might be curious what the connection between Veterans Incorporated and Valor House. Could you tell us a little bit about in the ways in which you're working together?
We all have the same goal and general direction in what we're doing here. Valor House and Housing Authority have always been a big part in what we do, and we've tried to be a part in what they do.
So for someone listening who is really curious about how they can help today, I'd like to just end your interview here by sharing 3 little things that someone listening out there could do.
If you are a landlord or a property manager and you wanted to give back to the veterans and to the community, help us in this mission. Anyone who is interested in doing that, they can contact our office, 800-482-2565.
Just to clarify, if someone out there is interested in helping, they're renting to veterans or they're donating their property?
They're going to rent anyway. If a lot of our veterans, like on my caseload, for instance, they're having trouble finding people who will rent to them. It would help streamline the process if we had a wider array of landlords and property managers to work with. And I also wanted to thank our elected officials on both sides of the aisle.
Hello, friends, family, and listeners around the world. We'll be back in 1 minute after this message from our podcast sponsor, to whom we are incredibly grateful.
Hi folks, my name is Chris and I'm the artist and co-founder at Explore Maps. My brother Greg and I produced our first map about 11 years ago, doing the map of Montana, and our list of maps has grown from 1 to our current tally of over 65. I've been drawing and painting for a long, long time, but I find that what I'm doing now with Explore is the most rewarding project I've ever been involved with, mostly because it's a family business, and helping to grow that business gives me a real sense of purpose. On the topic of connecting people in place, hopefully these maps bring back memories of great holidays and fun with family and friends, and it makes people want to get out there and connect or reconnect with these places. Anyway, thanks for listening.
Hi, this is Vanessa, Chris's wife. Which map will you get to help you treasure your own special times? Please be sure to use the promo code Mandela for a discount when you visit exploremaps.com.
I'm sitting at the Valor House here in Missoula, Montana, with Robert Taggart. And he is a Vietnam-era veteran, artist, traveler, and epic storyteller. Robert lives in Missoula at the Valor House, which offers permanent housing to veterans in need. Robert, I just want to start by saying thank you so much for your service, and also thank you for setting aside the time and energy to sit with me today and share your stories.
You're welcome.
My first question for you is, where did you grow up, and how was adventure a part of your childhood?
I grew up in Rochester, New York, on the west side of the city. Went to school, became a Boy Scout. That's where I learned most of my survival skills, camping out and whatnot. When I was 16 or 18, I quit school because I got tired of hearing about different places, reading about different places. I said, that's it, I want to do it. So I just packed out my Boy Scout pack, couple bedrolls. It started out as an adventure. And then over the years, it became a journey. I wanted to see what other people were like. Back then, back in the 70s, homelessness wasn't a big issue. Not like it is now. I wanted to see how people treated people, especially in different parts of the country, different states and whatnot. So I traveled just about all over the United States. I've gone to D.C., saw all those stuff in D.C., did the Vietnam Memorial. I never realized I was a chronic homeless vet until I came back here to Missoula and was talking to my case manager. From adventure to journey to a quest. The quest was to see how people treated homeless vets. I'm sure you're aware of when veterans came back from Vietnam and whatever, they were treated like garbage. Well, I never experienced that. What I experienced was the way people treated homeless vets. They treated homeless vets like they were worthless. Veterans aren't worthless. Granted that a lot of vets had their issues. They had their mental health issues. They had their other issues. I can understand that. I can understand why they give it up to the government. I started to give up on the VA because of all their broken promises. We'll do this, we'll do that, we'll do this. Well, I didn't want those broken promises. I can't live off broken promises. So when I was traveling across the country, I would say 80% of the people that would stop and give me rides were veterans or had families that were vets. It's unbelievable how much help I got when I was out there. Countless backpacks, sleeping bags, tents, clothing, money, food, places to stay where I wouldn't have to stay out in the woods someplace and worry about getting bopped in the head in the middle of the night. So when I came back to Missoula back in 2021, I went through the program at Poverello, saw my case manager, did my case management for 2 years. When the opportunity came up, would you like to go see your apartment? So I did. There was 2 of the case managers plus the case manager here. They gave me the key to my apartment, put the key in the door, opened it up and turned around and give the key back. She goes, "No, that's your key to keep." So when I looked into my apartment, I says, "This is mine?" And they go, "Yeah." Well, they were always telling me that I deserved it. I always asked, "Why did I deserve it?" "Well, you deserve it." So I moved in, got all my stuff in my apartment that I had. I got more stuff than I can imagine, don't I? 2 Christmases ago, Secret Santa Claus to bring me a bunch of different sized paintbrushes, acrylic paints, canvases, sketchbooks, pencils, all kinds of stuff, which I could never afford when I was out there. I couldn't afford this. Earlier in the program, being here, I had a case manager from VOA to help me out, get my birth certificate, help me get my Social Security. Case manager here helped me get my Social Security, which I could have never got when I was out there. I appreciate the help I got. I appreciate my moral support. I call them my guardian angels. I've never been in any trouble since I've been here. I've never got any IR reports, nothing. I help out. That's me. That's my way of giving back. I did the 5K at the clinic last year. This is my home. This is where I want to be. This is why would I want to leave? I have everything I need. I have all the support. Where else could I turn? No place.
Tell us about where you are right now.
I'm at Valor House here in Missoula, in my own place. I'm safe, I'm comfortable. What more can I need?
And who else is here with you?
There's, 13, 14 other vets here in the building. We all have our separate apartments. We have community time with each other. So when we have the Marines coming and do our Christmas and Thanksgiving dinners and barbecues and whatnot, you don't find that anyplace else. You don't find a city that cares about its vets, whether we're homeless or not. You can't forget us. We're here. We are.
The Valor House has changed your life?
Yes, a lot. And as I said, I don't have to worry about walking down the street or someone come up and knock me in the head for any reasons. I'm here.
Sometimes I feel like we don't necessarily know what we have until it's not there. You know, it seems like you've been living happily on the road for quite a long time.
40 years.
40 years, but to come home and have a bed to sleep in and, you know, your own key and your own community.
Yeah, my own refrigerator, my own stove. Mm-hmm. And I walk out, go to Albertsons or Walmart's or wherever I want to go.
Let's talk a little bit more about the Missoula Housing Authority and their involvement with the Valor House. Can you tell us a little bit about them and how they've helped you?
Missoula Housing has been great. I mean, they opened up their building to vets that needed a permanent housing. That's what most of us want. We want permanent housing so we don't have to worry about the environment. We don't have to worry about anything. Missoula Housing has been great. They have. And I'm not just saying it because, but they have, they're great. It's nice to have people who really care. It's called empathy. I learned that word a long time ago. I wondered if it was a good word or something otherwise, and I was told it was a good thing. Mm-hmm. A lot of people don't have empathy. They don't. Especially for a veteran. So what? He was over there, did this, he did that. No. Not all vets are like that. Not all vets are like me.
So how would you define empathy?
A person has to have three things. First one is an open mind. Second thing is an open heart. And the third is to never, ever forget that a homeless vet also served for our country and for each other. That's why I chose the songs that I did. I want people, not only in Missoula, but in other parts of the United States, to know that we do exist and we did what we did, what most of us did, not to ever forget, especially during the holidays, because that's where most vets are forgotten, during the holidays. I want people to have it in their hearts. Some of us could be your brother, or your son, or your uncle. I don't want people to ever forget. I'm starting to tear up.
Why do you think people have forgotten?
Well, social media don't help. Hollywood don't help. What's the first thing you see in a movie? A homeless person. Is he a vet? No. Is he one? Maybe. I don't want people to think that all veterans are alcoholics or drug addicts. That's not my place to judge. It shouldn't be anybody else's place to judge what that person went through. I've seen it. I've seen, when I was traveling around the country, what other vets go through. You walk down the street and someone's walking by you, they go, walk way around you. Oh, that's wrong. It's totally wrong. That's what I want people to know. That we're not all alcoholics. We're not worthless. We're not dysfunctional. We're human beings, just like you and I, just like everybody else in this world. We're all human beings.
So what would you ask someone listening to consider when they are navigating the United States or here in Missoula and they see someone who might need a little bit of help? What would you advise them to do?
First of all, listen to your heart. Listen to what your heart tells you to do. If you're able to help, fine. If you're not, at least try to talk to them. Don't ask personal questions, just casual talk. A lot of vets don't like to talk about what they did. I'm sure you've seen it. Just be kind.
A smile can go a long way.
Yep, so can a hug. But yeah, you have to humble yourself. I've learned a lot, and there's still a lot to learn. There is.
What other adventures did you go on? Sounds like you did some work with the circus.
I worked with carnivals. My dad, when he was younger, worked with Barnum and Bailey Circus. He worked with elephants. Some years back, I ended up in, somewhere up in Wyoming. It wasn't Barnum and Bailey, it was some local carnival circus. Well, guess what I ended up doing? Working with elephants. African elephants. And I did that. I worked with carnivals. I ran rides. I've worked with horses in upstate New York, what they call buggy horses. I love horses.
Winston Churchill used to say, the best thing for the inside of a man is the outside of a horse. Or did you find the horses to be healing when you spent time with them?
Yes. Horses are like any other animal. They sense things, especially horses.
I feel like you don't even need to get on the horse to benefit from being around them. What advice would you share with a veteran who's listening and they don't really know how to ask for help?
God, sounds like me. It's hard to ask for help, especially when a brother or a veteran sister has gone through what they've gone through. It's hard to ask. I had to learn to accept those things. I had to learn to accept there were people there to help and not ask for anything in return. I had to learn to accept what's given to me. Not because I feel like it's owed to me, but what's deserved. If there was a vet brother or a vet sister that needs to help, then it's up to them to seek it out. It's hard to put things in the past, but you need to think about the future. I had to learn that. I'm learning it every day. I'm learning it with the vets that are in the house here, the people I meet out in the streets, the people who come in here and take their time from their families to come in here and help the brothers in the house here. That's what you got to do.
Robert, what did the blanket donation project mean to you?
It reminded me of all the states I've been to.
Yeah.
From New York State all the way down to Florida, California, New Mexico, Arizona. I even went into Mexico one time. When I was down in Brownsville, Texas. Went down into Mexico. I wanted to see what it was like. Got my first haircut in a little 8x10 cubby hole with one chair in it and a Mexican barber that can't speak any English at all. It cost me $1 for a haircut. That was amazing. It was. I met a lot of nice people all across the country. I have. I met a lot of people that were nice. Some that weren't nice.
For someone listening who really wants to travel like you have, but they're afraid, what would you say to them?
I always traveled by myself. You decide to travel with somebody else that you could trust, that's fine. There are some states in the United States you can't hitchhike in. Mm-hmm. I used to think when people would pick me up, give me rides, or put me in a nice motel, or buy me a hot meal, or buy me a bus ticket or a train ticket, that was one of my biggest, bucket list, was to ride Amtrak. Mm-hmm. I finally did it. I was up in North Dakota, and his vet brother and his wife picked me up. Said, well, we don't have a Greyhound, but we do have a train. So they did. They got me a train. Bought me a train ticket. First class. I won't fly. But yeah, people like that. I always thought people did it because they had to do it or they felt guilty. Well, if you feel guilty about not helping a brother out, then that's your trip.
2024 marks the 50th year of the Poverello Center, providing food, shelter, help, and hope to all who ask in the Missoula community. To celebrate this important milestone, here is some audio provided by MCAT Community Media, featuring the voices of people and the work of the Poverello Center over the years. According to the Homeless Management Information System, on a single day in April, there were 622 households experiencing houselessness in Missoula. If you or someone you know is navigating a housing emergency, call the Poverello Center at 406-728-1809 or Hope Rescue Mission at 406-549-HOPE.
It's really hard to say you have a great community if there are lots of people left out of the greatness.
I think at the time before the Poverello was created, we were rather indifferent to people who were homeless.
I knew there was such a thing as a homeless shelter. I'd never been in one or didn't know anything. I didn't know anything about homelessness at that time. But I was without money, and so I came to the Poverello.
A group of people called lay Franciscans came together in prayer to try and involve their lives in the way of St. Francis of Assisi, who was a man of the poor. They became very concerned and started to make a movement to create a space where people could be fed, and then eventually where people could be housed temporarily. And they just started without any fanfare, and eventually it became what it is today.
I was a truck driver, and I got a job in eastern Montana, Culbertson. I hitchhiked there. They hired me over the phone, and I've been in Montana practically ever since. Now that I've gotten older, I can't work. And I squandered my money. Hadn't it been for this place, I'd be out there. And I'm too old to be out there. It's a blessing in my book. The ones I feel for are the families. You know, I've seen kids come through here. This place wasn't here, those kids wouldn't be eaten.
I work at the POV because I believe that everybody deserves a second chance, and I believe that we can help offer hope to those people who have none. I am the POV.
The Poverello Center's emergency shelter and soup kitchen provides thousands of nights of shelter to men and women struggling with homelessness. We also serve growing numbers in our soup kitchen.
You got to have some place to live and you got to have something to eat. If you don't have those two things, it's really going to be hard to put the rest of your life together.
I am the POV.
I am the POV.
I am the POV.
This is Frank Selassie, Executive Director of the Montana Wildlife Federation. MWF is a statewide grassroots conservation advocacy group founded in 1936. We've been part of every significant victory for wildlife habitat and public access in Montana for the past 88 years. With the heat wave in full force, I wanted to share a few conservation tips. First, don't start a wildfire. Be careful with cigarette butts. Don't let the chain to your RV or toy hauler drag on the highway and create sparks. And lay off the fireworks. Second, be aware of emergency fishing closures on our blue ribbon streams and rivers. When the water temperature rises and maintains a temperature in the low 70s, cold water fish are in danger, and angling activity is in fact barred by law between 2 p.m. and midnight. Go to fwp.mt.gov for a full list of hoot owl restrictions. Thanks for listening and caring for Montana's wildlife habitat and public access.
That's it for this week's adventure, my friends in Missoula and around the world. But until next week, please remember, conservation is not a spectator sport. Living in Missoula is a privilege. With privilege comes responsibility. Please get educated and engaged. Speak up on behalf of wildlife and wild places. And if you think you're too small to make a difference, well then you've never spent the night with a mosquito.